Inside the world's top AI labs, researchers are now warning that the latest models write complex software entirely on their own. This led Silicon Valley insiders to forecast a collapse of entry-level knowledge work, predicting the elimination of half of all white-collar starter roles within 5 years. Corporate boards are already moving on these warnings. Payment giant Block recently eliminated 4,000 employees, cutting roughly 40% of its workforce, with the CEO citing the efficiency of AI tools as the primary driver for the layoffs. Klarna followed a similar path, announcing a hiring freeze and claiming their new AI agents now handled the same volume of work previously managed by hundreds of human customer service representatives. Following the Silicon Valley narrative leads to a single stark conclusion: the job apocalypse has reached the front door of the modern office. Macroeconomic data reveals a massive disconnect. This chart plots the explosion of AI hype against actual U.S. employment rates measured by the Yale Budget Lab since the launch of ChatGPT. The employment line remains flat. Economists at Goldman Sachs confirmed this, reporting that AI's contribution to U.S. GDP growth last year was essentially zero. When researchers looked specifically at fully remote jobs, positions that exist entirely on screens, they found that AI agents could only adequately complete about 4.5% of those roles. This gap exists because tech CEOs and economists measure different things. The industry focuses on theoretical capabilities, what a model can do in a controlled lab. Economists measure actual adoption, what a legal or compliance department will actually trust a machine to do in the real world. Broad economic averages hide the specific danger. Calculating your actual risk requires looking past the noise and examining how your specific tasks intersect with your demographic profile. This chart displays the first metric of risk: exposure. It measures how many daily tasks can be plausibly automated. Janitors sit on the far left with nearly zero exposure, while web designers sit on the far right as some of the most exposed workers. High exposure only leads to job loss when paired with a second, more critical metric: adaptability. Research from GovAI and the Brookings Institution defines adaptability as a worker's capacity to pivot to a new, high-paying career if their current role disappears. This score is driven by structural factors: age and career stage, levels of accumulated wealth, and breadth of transferable skills. This matrix plots both axes together. Upper right, software developers face high exposure, but have high adaptability and mobility to survive. Bottom left, fast food workers face low AI exposure today, but also low adaptability. If automated, they have fewer resources to pivot. A worker's survival in this transition depends less on the raw power of the technology and more on their own socioeconomic mobility. The most dangerous position on this map is the bottom right quadrant. These workers face massive AI exposure, but have the lowest adaptability scores in the dataset. This zone is currently occupied by customer service representatives, secretaries, and interpreters. The demographic reality of this quadrant is stark. 86% of the workers trapped in this high vulnerability zone are women. History provides a map for what happens next. In the early 20th century, the telephone's modernization eliminated the manual switchboard, then one of the most common occupations for American women. Data on those displaced switchboard operators shows long-term economic damage. A large portion of those workers never found employment again, and those who did faced permanent, significant pay cuts. AI is statistically poised to systematically hollow out female-dominated clerical professions while sparing demographics that have the structural wealth to pivot. While economists debate the exact timeline of this disruption, the technology continues to improve. Workers must develop a survival strategy while the macro data is still calm. Using generative AI for frictionless, instant answers triggers a cognitive trap, a measurable decline in the user's own intellectual performance. A 2025 study in Science Direct tracked students using ChatGPT for problem solving. After 45 days, those students retained 11% less knowledge than their peers. Because the brain never had to work for the answer, it never stored the information. Researchers at the MIT Media Lab wired professionals to EEG headsets while they used AI. They found a 55% drop in cognitive engagement, resulting in work evaluators described as soulless. Outsourcing your thinking to a machine saves time today, but it destroys the critical judgment and specialized skills that determine your adaptability score on the vulnerability matrix. The antidote is friction. AI must be used to prompt deeper human thinking rather than allowing it to replace the thinking process entirely. This requires a change in daily habit. Wrestle with the problem manually first. When using the AI, ask probing questions and dispute its logic. Treat the software as a collaborator in a long, difficult conversation rather than a search engine for answers. This process is about building the habit of continuous adaptation. By constantly struggling with the tool, you develop the unique judgment that machines cannot yet replicate. The AI job crisis operates as a quiet, systemic reshuffling of the matrix. While you cannot change your age or your wealth overnight, you can use AI to aggressively augment your own judgment, forcing your way into the quadrant of workers who are too skilled to be replaced and too adaptable to be left behind.